Hey guys, welcome back to the JSV Podcast, your one stop shop for everything NFL, NBA, and MLB. So, again, moving forward, these episodes are going to have all three sports in one episode, and I'll just try to break it down like the YouTube videos so that way you can just skip to the sports that you're more interested in. So, we're going to start with the MLB, and I really want to talk about the fact that Bregman and Pete Alonzo did sign since I last recorded, and Pete Alonzo stayed with the Mets. He didn't have too many options. It was pretty much always going to be either the Mets or probably not going to play unless he really wants to take a pretty big discount. And so he ended up staying with the Mets. I thought that was the best situation for him. I thought that was the best place that he could have gone. So happy for him. Happy he gets to stay a Met. Good for Mets fans. And that team is looking very dangerous. Are they at the Dodgers level? No, but it's baseball. Anything can happen, right? So we'll have to see how that plays out. But I think they're going to be a very, very good team. Them alongside the Braves and Phillies, that is shaping up to be one of, if not the toughest division in all of baseball. Now going to the Bregman side of things, again, as an Astros fan, sad to see him go. He did sign a 3-year deal, 120, I believe it was, $1 million contract with the Boston Red Sox. So yeah, because it ended up being $40 million a year. Now the Red Sox are deferring some of that, which means that they don't have to pay him now, but they will have to pay him later. But at least this way, he's not such a huge cap hit. Well, there's not a cap, but he's not super huge hit to their financial books. Kind of allows them to have a little bit more flexibility to maybe bring in somebody else or make a trade, whatever they decide to do from there. But I was a little surprised by this. I know Bregman was looking for a long term. I think he was looking for 6, 7 years, $200+ million. He had a 6-year contract for 156 from the Astros. I heard the Astros had increased the money a little bit. Don't know the exact dollar figure, but I know 6 years, 156, and I had heard reports that the Astros had increased that offer a little bit. And then you also had the Tigers, who had the best offer in terms of what he was looking for at 6 years, about 172, 176, somewhere around there. And he ended up deciding to go with the Red Sox. So, and on the 3-year 120, so he's getting more annual dollars per year, but just less years. He's kind of betting on himself essentially to say, hey, I'm gonna keep producing and hopefully I can get that long-term contract next season, because I believe he has a couple of opt-out years for year 2 and 3, if I remember correctly, from that Red Sox deal. So even though it is like a 3-year deal, 120, it could just be a 1-year deal. It's kind of similar to when the Twins signed Correa. Correa had all those opt-outs for his contract. I think he did after the first season and then just re-signed essentially with the Twins. So Bregman could be doing something like that, especially if he produces. Boston's a more hitter-friendly park than Detroit is, meaning that it's easier to hit like home runs in that park, or just easier to get base hits compared to the Tiger Stadium. And as a result, Bregman does have better hitting numbers. Better was it batting average? He has a better. So Bregman has a better batting average. He has a better slugging percentage. All that just basically showing that he will get base hits. He will also hit for power in the Red Sox stadium, get home runs and doubles over singles more consistently in Boston than he does in Detroit. That's all that means. So that makes sense then why he would go to Boston, again, trying to bet on himself. Detroit gave him a long-term deal with a lot of money, but he was, again, looking for about 200+ million. And he's probably like, well, I'm not getting that from Detroit. Let me try to bet on myself, in which case I need to go to a more hitter-friendly ballpark, which would be more like Boston or Houston. But clearly he decided to go with Boston, get the more, again, more average annual money, being at $40 million, even though, again, it is deferred. He'll still get that money, just not right away. And at least that's my understanding of how the deferred money works. It's a little confusing still, because it's it's something that's a little bit newer that's really become a little bit more popularized by the Dodgers, and that's the team that typically is doing it. A lot of other teams don't defer the money. Um, but from what I've read up on what deferred money is, it's you still have to pay that player. That's still a contract at the end of the day. It's just you don't have to pay them right now. I guess if you're an NFL listener, it's kind of like restructuring the contract in a way, basically pushing the money out. So, regardless, Bregman ended up going with Boston. It kind of felt like he didn't really want to come back to Houston because, again, Altuve was willing to move to left field so Bregman could play second. And then you also had more, like the longer term deal that you were looking for, just less money. But he wants to bet on himself. Wishing him the best, but is what it is. It's sad to see him go, leave Houston where he's always been, but that's how it works. And the Astros have still found success after losing Springer, Correa, Garrett Cole, Justin Verlander the first time, now the second time, and yeah. So I think the Astros will still be fine. We all, I think, in Houston expected that to happen. So I kind of want to talk about like the fits as well, though, with these two guys on their teams. So Alonzo, we kind of already know the fit. He's been a Met his whole for his whole career. He's played at first base, which is where he's still gonna go ahead and play. And they just look better with him in the lineup versus the alternative. Now I've heard that like they have pretty high hopes though on who their backup first baseman would be. But if you can bring back Alonzo, great locker room guy, fan favorite, still a great batter, great player. You want to do that. That's exactly what the Mets were able to do, despite their owners saying that those contract talks were painful. And that's probably more so on Boris's end than it was on Alonzo's. But either way, glad he got signed. I'm glad that he's still a Met. I think it'd be weird to see Pete Alonso anywhere else. Now, so that's really all I have to say. Again, we know the fit. We've seen it. We have a lot of tape of him playing with the Mets, and they're adding Juan Soto, but I don't think that's going to mess up what he does for the team, because he's still going to bat the way that he does. He's still going to play first base the way that he does. You're just adding another superstar in your batting lineup. So fit-wise, that should be pretty seamless. Now, as for Bregman, that fit's going to be a little interesting. I've heard that Bregman's going to go to second base, so that way Rafael Devers can stay at third, and then you have Trevor Story at shortstop. Now, Trevor Story has consistently gotten injured throughout his time with Boston. He has not been lucky in terms of staying healthy. I hope he does stay healthy. I don't like to, he was a guy that I was actually even hoping the Astros would sign at the time of his free agency, because that was at the same time the Astros had lost Correa. Worked out that the Astros didn't, and we went with Pena, and obviously he won ALCS and World Series MVP rookie year. And even though Pena hasn't been the greatest player compared to what that rookie season would have led us to believe, he still has at least been playing in a little bit and in the lineup more consistently than Trevor Story has for Boston. So worked out in the end, I think, for Houston, but Boston's looking like a very strong team. They have a very deep lineup, both infield and outfield, and it's going to be very interesting to see how Bregman does at second base. And then if Trevor Story goes down, I know Bregman's played shortstop at LSU when he was in college, but I don't think he's a very good shortstop player now at this point in his career. So I feel like you want to keep him at second, and because, again, you have a deep infield, you just throw one of those guys at short. I had also heard reports that maybe Rafael Devers would become the DH, the designated hitter, and Bregman would continue staying at third with Boston. I've heard more reports that he's going to be moving to second. I think they want Devers still playing third, and so they'll just have Bregman play second, which he says he can do and he'll learn. I don't know what that transition period will look like for him, if it's going to be pretty seamless for him or if he might need a couple of weeks to get the hang of playing second base compared to third. So we'll have to see how that works out. It'll be very interesting. Right now, I'm actually starting to like the Red Sox a little bit more than the Orioles. I know in my previous video I put the Orioles above the Red Sox and how I believe that they would finish in the standings. I'm kind of starting to second guess that, mainly because the Red Sox had also brought in Walker Buehler from the Dodgers and Adolis Chapman. And Chapman's a great closer. I think that's the position he'll probably play because they weren't getting what they wanted to out of Jansen, and so Chapman's going to be their closer, try to take over that role, and which is what Chapman has been for the majority of his career. He's been a great closer for a lot of his career. And then you still have Walker Buehler, who finally looked like he was getting right back into shape after missing a bunch of time with injury. In the postseason, especially in the World Series, he looked a lot better being on the mound. And I think that's just going to add another good starting pitcher to your rotation. I bet right now they kind of wish they had kept Chris Sale, maybe even Nathan Eovaldi, because then that would have been a dangerous group of guys. But I think they're still going to have a good team right there. And Buehler, if he can stay healthy and keep, getting back into form, he will just be a very dangerous weapon for them in that starting rotation. So, all in all, I think it's like they have the offense. They definitely have what they might need on the pitching side to at least contend, if not win the division. I think that's going to be a very tight three-man race between the Yankees, Orioles, and Red Sox for those top three. And I wouldn't be surprised. I know I picked the AL Central to have three playoff teams with the Tigers, Guardians, and Royals. I wouldn't be surprised if it's actually the Yankees, Orioles, and Red Sox who end up going instead of just the Yankees and Orioles like I initially predicted. So basically, it'll be a very interesting race to watch in that division. See how those teams play against each other. Well, since they're division rivals, they'll have a lot of games in series against each other, so that'll be a lot of fun. We'll get plenty of time to watch that. It's just going to be, can the Red Sox stay healthy? Bregman's been a pretty durable player. We'll see, hopefully that continues. I know he had to take care of a little bit of an injury, I think, on his hand, if I had that correct. And then, Trevor Story's always missed a lot of time. Devers has been in and out, but he's been pretty consistently healthy. So, yeah, as long as they don't have terrible luck on the health side of things for their players, they should be pretty good. And they should be a very good team. And, we'll have to just see how all that plays out. But very exciting if you're a Red Sox fan, a little bit sad if you're an Astros fan like myself, but Bregman, always wishing you the best. Go out there and kill it. Just not against us, please. And that's pretty much all I had on the baseball side. There's, again, not too many updates right now as we head into spring training. Once the season kind of starts kicking off and we can do a little bit more reactions to how teams initially look, or as spring training continues to go along and we see different players maybe pop out and be like, oh, could they get a starting spot or at least a rotational spot for these different teams? That's when I think we'll have a little bit more to talk about. But wanted to talk about Alonzo and especially Bregman signing with their teams now, officially no longer free agents, and they will be playing baseball, which we all knew they would, but we were just wondering with who and when. Let's move over to the NBA now. So with the NBA, last time, really the only big trade that had happened when I had recorded was the Luka AD trade. Since then, we had a very chaotic trade deadline with Butler going to the Warriors, Fox going to the Spurs, LaVine to the Kings, and just a lot of different moving pieces. First and foremost, I hate that Butler went to the Warriors, not because I don't think it's a good fit or because, it's even going to contend with my Spurs. I mean, kind of because it's going to contend with my Spurs, but more so, that's another all-star caliber player coming to the West. Like LaVine came to the West. DeRozan had come to the West. Now Butler is coming to the West. And yes, those are, DeRozan and Butler are aging stars, but they're still star players. And if anybody wants to tell me otherwise, I got to see DeRozan basically put the Kings on his back and win them the game in overtime against the Mavericks earlier this week. So DeRozan's still a very, very good player. He's not an all-star, but I think he's still a star caliber player. And you're just seeing a lot of stars come to the West because the Western Conference teams understand how deep the conference is and are trying their hardest to get better. Whereas I feel like Eastern Conference teams don't really have that same level of urgency. So Eastern Conference teams don't really have the same level of urgency that the West do. And a large part of that is just because, again, the East is not that deep. You can still make the playoffs and probably can go on some runs if you get hot at the right time in those playoffs, like we saw with the Pacers last year. I don't think anyone expected the Pacers to be an Eastern Conference Finals team, but they were. And it's just how it works. So I do want to talk real quick. I'm going to talk about each of those trades a little bit more. So we'll start with, we already talked about Luka and AD, so let's start with the Butler to the Warriors, because that's probably the second biggest behind the Fox, or followed by the Fox to San Antonio. So Butler to the Warriors, I think that's great for the Warriors. You have an aging Steph Curry, who again is one of the greatest point guards of all time, arguably the best, but we're not going to sit here and have that argument just yet. So you have an Steph Curry still playing great, one of the greatest of all time, stayed with your team the whole way, and has been a one-team guy, which is pretty rare nowadays. And he you could tell he's frustrated. He wants to compete. He wants to win, and he's not doing that with the Warriors. So they went out, and truthfully, I didn't expect that. I thought they were going to just, sit back and say, hey, we're going to just ride it out. Probably not going to be that good, but we have young guys that we are going to develop. Instead, they went out. They traded Andrew Wiggins, and I forget who else, and they got back Jimmy Butler. So you got that star to pair alongside Steph Curry, because Draymond Green, as good as he is, not really an all-star anymore, not really at that caliber either, but still a good player, still a guy that you want around in the locker room. So Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond all together, it's honestly they haven't looked too bad. They have actually looked pretty good from the limited time that I've seen them play with each other, and we'll just see how the second half, the post All-Star break part of the season goes for the Warriors now, as they continue to try to chase the playoff spot. And let me see right now if I'm looking it up. So this is again at the All-Star break. I'm recording this on Saturday, February 15th. The Warriors are currently sitting at the 10th seed, 28 and 27. They're on a one-game winning streak, 6-4 in their last 10. So nothing like super crazy, but the Kings are above them, are 5-5 in their last 10 on a one-game losing streak, and they're tied record-wise. But Kings have that tiebreaker, so that's why the Kings are the 9th seed. They're the 10th, and when we look at the games behind, they're only 3.5 games behind the Clippers for the 8th seed. 6th seed. So, and the 6th seed is a guaranteed playoff spot. 7 and 8 would have to participate in the play-in with the 9th and 10th seed. And so they're looking pretty good. They're only a game and a half away from the 8th seed, and the reason why that's important is because 7 and 8, they only need to win one game to make the playoffs, whereas the 9th and 10th seed would have needed to win 2 games in a row to make the playoffs. So the Warriors are only a game and a half from the 8th seed, where they would only need to win one. And between like Minnesota, Mavericks, Kings, Warriors, those are the 4 teams in the play-in currently. I feel pretty confident they'd probably win at least one of those 2 games that they'd play, so that way they can make at least the 8th seed. But we'll have to see how that plays out. And they're definitely now the running for a top 6 seed. There's a little bit more of a gap between them and the 5th seed, which is the Lakers. Lakers are actually making a real honest push for that 2 seed, trying to catch Memphis there. So, and with Luka now playing, they might do it. But yeah, the Warriors might. But you really, and I know I'm talking a lot about like where they are in the standings and how they're trying to play, but you're making a win now move. You have finally decided, okay, we're not going to stop trying to rebuild while compete at the same time, because that's very hard to do, and it's just not something that is really the recipe for success. It's just not. So making the win now move, pairing Steph with another All-Star to try to make this playoff push, I think was the right move. Because you don't want to trade Steph Curry. You want him to retire a Warrior, but really to only do that and still, show him a lot of respect for as a player and competitor, you had to make a win now move. And you're just going to have to say, hey, we're going to stop trying to do this whole rebuild while we're competing thing and, do the two timelines. And we're just going to go full on, try to win now, try to get, see if we can get one more out of these last, 2 or 3 years of Steph Curry. And then we're going to have to just bottom out, tank, and we'll begin our rebuild. I think that's the right thing to do. So the Warriors are making the right moves. They're trying to make the win now moves, and we'll see how that plays out for them. But right now they're playing. It's hard for me to see them dropping out of it. And with playoff Jimmy being a real thing again, and then Steph Curry always turning it up in the playoffs, they could really make an honest push at something. I don't think they're going to win it. I don't think they're going to beat the, Grizzlies, the Thunder, Nuggets, Rockets, Lakers. I mean, those are a lot of good teams. But they could. I think they definitely could, especially with how good Jimmy is in the playoffs. So this actually will then perfectly transition me into the other Western Conference team, the Spurs and Kings, because they made a trade with each other. It did include the Bulls, where the Spurs sent Trey Jones, Zach Collins, and then Sissoko to the Bulls. Sissoko was then dealt in a different trade. But those three players were dealt to the Bulls. The Bulls sent Levine over to the Kings, and the Kings sent De'Aaron Fox to the Spurs. I love this for the Spurs. I'm a Spurs fan, but I love this. And here's why. Trey Jones, as good as he is, he's just a backup point guard, and you can find that production in free agency, and really even on your roster, because since you have Chris Paul and De'Aaron Fox starting next to each other at the 1 and 2 respectively, now you have Stephen Castle coming off the bench instead of being your starting 2. I know a lot of fans don't love that, but I think it is the right move just because I think you need to start Chris Paul for the fact that he's really good at controlling the game. Just a very smart player and helps out really set up his team a lot better than maybe Castle can at this moment. And then, of course, you want to start Fox because he is the all-star caliber player, which means that Stephen Castle gets to be your sixth man right off the bench, and gets to lead a group that also has Keldon, Bassie, Jeremy Sohan has also been coming off the bench with Harrison Barnes starting at the 4. So he has some talented players off the bench to come with him. Castle, this is, and it's at least still giving you that backup point guard, maybe even better than what Trey Jones was giving you at the backup point guard. And I think it kind of works out well because you've always wanted Castle to kind of be able to play that point guard position, and having him be the backup and leading the second unit is getting him that experience, whereas he was really just playing more so the 2 guard and trying to learn from Chris Paul by watching, not by actually playing too much of that point guard position. So I don't mind him coming off the bench. He'll be a starter next year. It'll be De'Aaron Fox at the 1, Castle at the 2, so I know he's playing the shooting guard again. But at least that way you can make sure you always have at least Castle and Fox. One of those 2 guys will always be on the court playing point guard at some point in the game. There's no reason to take both of them out at the same time, unless you're blowing out a team. So, and Castle has that experience now of playing the point guard. So I think it does make sense, again, long term. And it's just finishing out half a season. It's his rookie year. I don't think people can stop losing their minds over the fact that Castle is not starting. So anyways, going back to it though, to the trade, you only give that backup point guard that, again, you've already kind of replaced that production for. You gave up Zach Collins, which truthfully he wasn't playing very well this year with the Spurs. Wasn't really playing that well last year either, and you want to make sure you got something for him. He helped you get De'Aaron Fox. Now, I know they said, like, oh, you gave up, was it like 2 seconds, 3 first-round picks? It's really 2 first-round picks and 4 seconds. Because the Spurs only gave up their pick, I believe, in 2027, which they should be good by then, with considering that you have Fox, Castle, Wemby. I've heard reports they might go after Durant in the offseason. We'll see what that trade looks like. Especially considering they pulled off this Fox trade without giving up almost anything. But so you should be pretty good. So that first round pick, I think you're okay with giving it up. It should be towards the end of the first round, hopefully, like in the 20s, and that's not a very valuable pick to give up. You did give up the Minnesota pick for 2031. That could be something. That could definitely be something with Gobert, probably going to be retired by then or close to it. And then Randall and Ant-Man, we'll have to see if they're even on the team. So if they're not on the team, then that pick does look good. But I think you sacrifice that to get an all-star player that can help you win now and later. Like, a young all-star caliber point guard that to just pair with Wemby. So you're okay with giving that up. So you're really only giving up like 2 first-round picks, one of which is probably the only one that's going to be very valuable. Your pick, you don't expect it to be because you expect to be winning. And then as for the third first-round pick, which is for this year, it's the Charlotte Hornets pick. And you're like, oh, Charlotte, they are right now the 14th seed in the Eastern Conference, second worst record in the fourth worst record in the league, 13-39. But you have to remember that pick is lottery protected and would convey to 2 second-round picks next year if it doesn't convey this year. And it's not going to convey because they're not going to make the playoffs. I'm just going to tell you that now. Spoiler alert, right? So because the Charlotte Hornets are, like, that pick is not going to become 2 seconds, it's not a first. It's 2 seconds. So you only gave up really 4 seconds and 2 first-round picks, and really no player that you are super attached to get De'Aaron Fox, an all-star. De'Aaron Fox and Harrison Barnes know each other very well, so of course, you have a little bit of that connection there, and that kind of helps with the transition time. And then you also, of course, keep Vassell, Sohan, Keldon. You even kept like Bassey and Blake Wesley, Malachi Branham, and all of your Hawks first round picks, and and most of your other picks. You only gave up like 2 valuable picks. Yeah, you sent the Bulls pick to Chicago as well, so you kind of gave up 4 first round picks. But again, Charlotte lottery protected. You weren't going to get it. It was going to become 2 seconds. The Bulls pick was top 10 protected, and right now the Bulls are 22-33, which is 10th in the Eastern Conference. And would be, there's only 9 teams, so they're actually the 10th worst team right now. Now, if they make the playoffs and stuff, then that becomes a post-lottery pick anyways, not super valuable. Again, when you consider that you're getting an all-star in De'Aaron Fox. But it's not looking like they probably won't make the playoffs over like the Heat or Magic. I think those are going to be the 2 teams that knock off the Hawks and Bulls in the play-in. Sixers could still also make the play-in over the Bulls or Hawks, and then they might make a quick run for a playoff spot. And I mean, even same thing with the Raptors. I mean, they're a little bit further behind at 17-38, but they don't look too bad after getting Brandon Ingram, which we'll get to in a second as well. And I know a lot of this is going to be on the NBA this episode, just because it's post-trade deadline. But again, you don't really feel bad about getting up that pick because you probably weren't going to get it anyways, and if you did, it wasn't going to be super valuable, but you kept the Hawks and you kept your pick, because right now the Spurs, even after the trade, are still 3-7 in their last 10. They did lose their last game heading into the All-Star break, and they're 23-29. So you're 6 games below 500. You're about 5 games away from the Warriors for that last play-in spot. It's just not looking too good, considering again the Timberwolves, Mavericks, Kings, and Warriors all hold control over those playoff spots, and the Kings didn't get any worse, or they got maybe a little bit worse, but they brought in Zach LaVine, and he's still an all-star caliber player, having a great season. He knows DeMar. They played with each other, so they have that connection. You still have DeMontis Sabonis, Keegan Murray, Malik Monk's playing your point guard position. Like, they're still a good team. They're still a very good team. Mavericks are still a good team that, they're still 6-4 in their last 10. Timberwolves are still going to be a good team, so I don't think you're going to catch them. So that means you're going to miss the playoffs again. That's fine. San Antonio, we cannot riot. We cannot lose our cool. We're doing all this also without our head coach and Popovich. Get well soon, Coach Pop. So Spurs are looking good. They have the future set, and you still have a lot of those assets and players to go after another big-time star if you wanted to. Again, Kevin Durant maybe in the offseason. And that wouldn't be terrible. Then you would have, depending on who you had to give up, you're definitely not giving up Castle. All right, Suns, we're going to just tell you that now. We're not giving up Castle. We didn't give up Castle for De'Aaron Fox, who, yes, maybe isn't as good as Kevin Durant, but he's a lot more durable than Kevin Durant and younger than Kevin Durant. So we're not going to give you Stephen Castle. Sorry. We wouldn't even give him to you if we were getting back Devin Booker. So you're going to have Fox, you're going to have Castle, you're going to have potentially Vassell. I would say you probably don't need to give up Vassell in a Kevin Durant trade if you still have, again, like Bassey, Johnson, Wesley, Branham, all those guys with the picks. So you'll have Fox, Castle, Vassell, either Harrison Barnes or Kevin Durant or somebody else, whoever they go after, and then Wemby. Good starting five. It's going to be year 3 Wemby now, year 2 Castle, and so they'll get a lot better. So you're looking really good. The only thing I want to say is I think Wemby needs to really work on his conditioning. Because De'Aaron Fox likes to move so fast and all these other young players like to move so fast with him, Wemby has honestly looked very tired to the point where I've even seen him like if a player's driving in, he loves to go help and just try to get that block. He loves to go for the blocks. And I saw him a couple of times actually just stand there and just let the guy blow past the defender, and he doesn't go out there to try to get the block or try to at least mess up the shot a little bit. And I think it's just because he is so tired from running up and down the floor because of how fast-paced Fox is making the Spurs play. So Wemby, he'll have the full off season. He won't have the Olympics to worry about. He'll have a full off season to rest and kind of get back, continue to improving his conditioning. And I think the conditioning as well will help him also stay more consistent throughout the entirety of a regular season. I'm excited to see what he looks like coming back from All-Star break because, again, it is a break. I know he's participating in All-Star weekend, but it's not the same as playing a game, and he still gets a lot of days rest in between. So it'll be fun to see them come back. They'll probably look a lot better when they come back with Wemby a little bit more rested. And I think that, he just needs to work on his conditioning, continue to, put on the muscle slowly as the Spurs have a plan for that, and he'll keep getting better. But the conditioning is the big one because he does look really tired in games. We can't have that happen from who is supposed to be our best player. So that's it from the Kings and Spurs side. Kings, they're still looking good and competitive. They'll still probably keep their playing spot. And then we'll see if they can make the postseason or if they won't. They're only a game and a half away from the 8th seed to, again, only need to win 1 instead of 2. And Kings, I think it's a smart move. You had just given your fans a taste of the playoffs a couple years ago. You missed it last season. You're being a little bit disappointing this season. And you still got an all-star caliber player back for Fox, who had admitted that he would not return. So overall, I think you came out good. For a guy who said he wasn't going to return, you still got multiple second-round picks. You got a couple first. One could be really good, maybe both if Spurs get some bad injury luck in 27. Hopefully they don't. And then you still got an all-star. So very good return for your all-star point guard who admitted he would not return. I don't have too much to say about some of the other ones. Those were really the 2 biggest ones, but I did want to bring up how the Cavs did get Hunter from the Hawks. I don't know what the Hawks are doing. You don't have your first-round pick. It's unprotected. So however you finish, you don't get it. Now the Hawks, to their credit, I mean they're 4-6. Never mind. I don't know why I felt like they were better in their last 10 games, but nope, they're 4-6. Actually, I think that is better because I think they were even worse than that before the trade deadline. So I guess they're a little bit better, but you're still 26-29. You're probably gonna miss the postseason, which means that you're giving the Spurs another lottery pick. It didn't make sense to sell your guys. Like you traded a couple of guys after losing one of your starters into a season-ending injury. Doesn't really make sense, but for the Cavs perspective, great trade. I think DeAndre Hunter is a better version of Karis LeVert in terms of how they play and what they bring to the table. And he kind of solidifies who that fifth starter will be, because now you know for a fact it's going to be Garland, Mitchell, Hunter, Mobley, and then Allen. I was drawing a blank on who would be the 4 and 5, but yes, it's Mobley and then Allen. And and you didn't really have to give up much outside of just Karis LeVert. You still keep a lot of the other guys around, like Koro, Strus, Dean Wade, who can still provide good bench minutes for you while you still. And the Cavs rotation is so well where they always have 2 of their 4 all-stars on the court at all times. So if you only run an 8-man bench, that works because you have your starting 5, then your 3, and you're always going to have 2 of those all-stars on the court, which means you really only need 3 more bench guys to fit in 5 on the court together. So if you only go 8 deep, they can make that work because their rotations are just that good. You want to go a little bit deeper in case there's injury, of course, but it still works. So as long as you can stay healthy, which so far they have, I hope they continue that way because they are a fun team. They are such a fun team, and I want them to stay that way heading into the postseason. But yeah, great trade on their part. Solidify the starting 5. You keep some of your depth on the bench without you don't have to give up too much for Hunter. And I think you're just going to be better overall. And then the last trade that's really, I guess, significant is, again, that Raptors trade where they get Brandon Ingram. I think it was a good trade for the Raptors. Pelicans, sucks that you had to give them up. And I don't remember the exact return that they got. I just remember looking at it and being like, it's not great. But, hey, I guess it's not bad considering, again, he's one of those players who said he wasn't going to return once his contract is up. But the Raptors got him, and now they at least have a good young core with, again, Quickly, RJ Barrett, you have Scotty Barnes, and then now you have Brandon Ingram. That's your 1, 2, 3, and 4 right there. They still have Portal for the 5. That's really not a bad 5-man rotation. Of course, they have to be healthy, but if you can be healthy, that's not a bad 5, and then you can just fill out the rest with some good bench guys. Maybe you try to look for an upgrade over one of those 5 guys. But Raptors don't look terrible after that trade. Again, it's just, will they stay healthy? But it's kind of a low risk, high reward for the Raptors because they were in a very weird spot where you're not really going to get the first overall pick unless you get lucky in the lottery. But you weren't good enough to really contend in the play-in in the East, which is a very weak conference in terms of their depth. They're very top-heavy in the East. So I think that was a good trade. Again, that trade can definitely make you competitive in the East, especially maybe not this year, but next year. Everyone can hopefully be back from injury at the beginning of the year. You condition them a little bit better, or however you end up doing it to hopefully keep them on the floor together. So overall, fun trade deadline, a super fun trade deadline, probably the best in recent history, if not all of history. And yeah, I think there's a lot of winners and losers, of course. I'm still going to consider the Mavericks a loser, considering AD did get injured the first game he played with the Mavericks. Just like I was talking about how he is very injury prone, and you're worried about Luka being injured. Well, now Luka's playing, and AD is not for at least, I think it was like a month or so. And then they also lost Gafford. So right now the Mavericks are just getting plagued by injuries, and it's unfortunate, but I didn't really understand that trade. Suns didn't make a trade. They were kind of in a really tough spot. They really wanted to trade Bradley Beal, but nobody wants to take on that contract of his, which makes sense. And I think they're going to try to – they might try to sell. I mean, they were shopping Kevin Durant. I think that kind of maybe hurt the relationship a little bit, and that's why they're willing to look for trades for him. But it'll be interesting to see what the Suns do. So, in the offseason, that is, because I don't think they're going to do much in the regular season. They'll probably still be ahead of the Spurs, but again, this is a very deep class, and the Spurs are looking like they're going to have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like maybe 9th, 10th, somewhere between like 9 and 11 right now, heading into the lottery. On top of the Hawks pick, maybe you get lucky, one of those picks moves up, or you just get 2 lottery picks in what's supposed to be a deep draft. So maybe you can package them in a KD trade. Who knows? But you have a lot of flexibility there. So overall, really fun trade deadline. I think it'll be make for a really fun end of the year, and I'm excited to see how that works out. So going to the NFL. The NFL just concluded their season, where the Eagles, unfortunately for Cowboys fans, I guess, but the Eagles are your Super Bowl 59 champions. Congrats to them. They did play very, very well. They looked really good. They have such a good team, very well ran, and it sucks to see that they won because I don't like the Eagles. I hate them, but hey, I have to give credit where credit is due, and they played a great game. Saquon Barkley didn't even have a crazy game. You could tell that the Chiefs were really trying to keep him from going off and having these big bursts, long runs. And so the Eagles were like, okay, that's what you're going to do. We have a game plan for that, and that's to attack you with all of our other weapons that we have. Because it's like, hey, we're not one-dimensional. We have 2 wide receiver 1 caliber receivers. We have a great tight end. We have other great players. We have a great O-line. Quarterbacks playing really well. So they have a ton of weapons. They utilized all of them. And then their defense played lights out. That was easily the number 1 defense in the league. They played like it. And, congrats to them. They won the Super Bowl. They're second in franchise history. I was way off on my prediction. I thought that game was going to be a lot closer. I thought Mahomes would look a lot better. And yeah, he just never really looked like he got into rhythm between being pressured all the time. He's used to having some lanes where he can escape the pocket when pressure is getting to him. And the Eagles did a great job at knowing that that's what he likes to do, and then just collapsing the pocket instead of leaving those open lanes for Mahomes to run through. So again, very well played, very well. They executed. There we go. The Eagles executed their game plan extremely well. Forced Mahomes into some errant throws. Didn't give him any lanes to run, and that kind of also caused Mahomes to be low off target in some cases. But hey, DeAndre Hopkins has to catch that ball that he dropped when he was wide open. Kelsey did not have a good game at all, and he had a couple of drop passes that he should have caught. That probably would have helped them out. So yeah, it was just bad game on the Chiefs' part, great game on the Eagles' part, and the Eagles got to get the revenge against the Chiefs from the Chiefs beating them in the Super Bowl 2 years prior at the beginning of their back-to-back Super Bowl wins. And they kept them from completing the three-peat. So, team able to three-peat is still up there for any team to grab. You just got to do the impossible, which apparently is to win 3 Super Bowls in a row. It's very hard to do, and I think the Eagles and Chiefs game proved that. So, moving on though from that, the Eagles now lost their offensive coordinator, and I saw that they had like five guys that were in contention, I guess, or rumored to maybe be in contention for that offensive coordinator role. The first one's like an internal hire, so their passing game coordinator, Kevin Patullo. Eagles fans, tell me how you say that, if there's Eagles fans listening to this. But yes, so I'm going to call him Kevin because I don't want to disrespect him by saying his last name right. So Kevin P, I'll do that, is is their passing game coordinator currently, and rumored to might maybe be promoting to their offensive coordinator role. Last time they did a promote, it didn't go so well for the Eagles. I believe that was the 2023 season where they tried to internal promote to offensive coordinator, and it went very bad. They choked the division to the Cowboys. Lost in the first round to the Bucks, and they did not look good. It was a terrible collapse to end the season, and that's what caused them to end up moving on to Kellen Moore this year. So, not sure if an internal hire is the best way to go, especially considering I saw the second guy who interests me a little bit more, Frank Reich. Yeah, because that's how you CH at the end is not ch, it's k, so Reich, not Reich. I'm sorry if I'm really messing up these last names. I'm not going to cut any of this. So Frank Reich is a candidate, and the reason why he interests me is because even though he is 63 and a little bit older, and I know you probably want more of the younger coordinators like you had in Kellen Moore last year, Frank Reich was a part of their Super Bowl win in 2018 when he beat Tom Brady and the Patriots. So it's a guy who has won the Super Bowl as your offensive coordinator, and now I think you honestly have even better weapons this time around than you did in 2018. Still an insanely good O-line, a better quarterback than what he had in the postseason with Nick Foles, better receivers with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, and then I think a better running back in Saquon Barkley. So you're just a better team now than you were then, and he was able to win a Super Bowl then with a backup quarterback against the GOAT and Tom Brady. Before people were like, oh, well, that was old Tom Brady, or he didn't have any weapons, or whatever. I mean, first off, old Tom Brady, don't even talk to me about that, because he went on to win a Super Bowl with the Bucks a couple years later. So, yeah, that does not matter in terms of what his age was at the time. Now, weapons, yeah, you could probably talk about that then. He still had Gronk. He still had Edelman. It's like, really? Either way, this guy beat Tom Brady and Bill Belichick with the backup quarterback in the Super Bowl to win them their first. So I think he would probably be the best guy if you can bring him back to take over again with this better offensive group. So I think that's just the better hire, in my opinion. Bring back the guy who knows the organization. He knows some of the players, because there are still, I think, some carryovers from that team in 2018. I'm not sure exactly who that is. I think they're on the O-line. Don't quote me on that. But either way, you have a guy who's familiar with the organization. The fans are familiar with him, and he's won there. He has won there. Bring him in. Say, hey, be like, hey, can we do this again? Let's run it back. Same offense with this coordinator that we had during our first Super Bowl run. Let's try to go for the repeat, and maybe even the first team to repeat, right? Because right now only the Eagles are the only team that are close to a three-peat now, because they're at 1. Everybody else is at 0 in a row. So the rest of the guys, I'm not too throw it apart when I was looking at it. Like Josh McCown. It's like, okay, a little bit of an Eagles connection being a backup to Carson Wentz in 2019, but it's like he's the quarterback's coach for the Vikings, and I mean, you could say like, hey, look what he did for Sam Darnold. That's pretty impressive. But I mean, Sam Darnold also did not look good against the Lions, and then the Rams in the game that could have won them the division and first round bye, and then the game in the first playoff game. So I don't know if you really want to bring that guy in, again, especially compared to a coordinator that has won a Super Bowl with you before. So I'm not super thrilled about that. You have Gerard Johnson, who's the quarterback's coach for the Houston Texans. Again, great quarterback with C.J. Stroud. I think that might be a better hire than Josh McCown. I don't know. I just feel like you're still better, though, if you get the offensive coordinator who knows the organization a bit more. But that wouldn't be a bad one. I kind of like Gerard Johnson a little bit more than McCown, mainly because Darnold did choke when the games mattered most, and I know that's not all on McCown, but I feel like that's a little bit on the quarterback's coach, that the quarterback choked 2 games, the 2 biggest games. So I do kind of like Gerard Johnson a little bit more. And then the last one is Marcus Brady, who is the passing game coordinator for the Chargers currently. He does have some ties. He was spent some time with the Eagles in 2022 as the offensive consultant and senior offensive assistant in 2023. Yes, I had to read that. And the reason why I'm like, I'm not sure if you want to do that is because, okay, he was an offensive consultant in 2022 when the Eagles, made the Super Bowl, yeah, right. I believe that was the year that was the first of the Chiefs wins for the back-to-back when they beat the Eagles. And then he was a senior offensive assistant in 2023 when the Eagles had that incredible collapse. So I'm like, I don't know if you want to bring him in, because it's like, hey, we brought you, like, you were a consultant. Yeah, we made it to the Super Bowl, but then we lost. But then the next year, you're our senior offensive assistant, and we had an epic collapse as a team that year as well. So again, I think the one that makes the most sense and the one that's the most intriguing is the Frank Reich bring back the offensive coordinator that won you your first Super Bowl and hope that he can win you your third. So that was kind of like the interesting stuff that I've seen on the Eagles side. I also want to talk about the trade request by Myles Garrett. And I think Myles Garrett requesting the trade is the perfect thing that could have happened to the Browns for one simple reason. They need to tank. Like, yes, you have Deshaun Watson under contract through 2026, and depending on how I think you restructure, he might still be a cap hit in 2027, but the cap hit is a lot less than what it will be in 25 and 26. So take this time right now to just bottom out. I'm not saying go get a quarterback this draft. You shouldn't. This is not a great quarterback class. Next year, the year after that could be the better one. But try to just start bottoming out now, because you want to start getting some better pieces around you. So when you draft that quarterback, he's not going in to a situation where he's now expected to turn the franchise around with no weapons around him. Kind of do something similar to like what the Bears did. The Bears have a kind of a pretty good team. They have some good weapons around their rookie quarterback. Now, this wasn't necessarily always planned, but they got some weapons. They tried to get better before, and then they drafted their rookie quarterback, and that helped them out a lot this season with looking a lot better than what they did the year previously. And they're going to keep getting better now as they kind of start figuring out what they have with Caleb Williams a little bit more and keep surrounding him with more and more talent. So if I'm the Browns, I kind of take that similar approach. Like, hey, let's see if we can maybe draft some linemen, because those guys take a while to develop. Let's maybe try to draft some defensive guys, some receivers that might take a while to improve their route running and stuff in the NFL. And then we can draft the quarter, and we have to pay Deshaun Watson anyway, so might as well have him start. And then maybe in 26 or 27, that's when you draft a quarterback, depending on what pick you have and what's available. But you just start bottoming out a little bit now. And it starts with Myles Garrett, trade him. I think there's, you have some other players on the offense and defensive side that you can trade. You've already traded Amari Cooper. So Jerry Jeudy could be another guy that you trade. And I think that just will help you out, accumulate the draft picks, use those draft picks to just take as many top available guys as you can. Hopefully some of them hit, if not most, and then you just start building so that when you get that quarterback, you have at least some kind of foundation for him to then propel your team back to contention, back to relevance, right? So I think that's what the Browns should do, and Myles Garrett might have just helped them by requesting a trade and kind of forcing their hand to start doing this. And so I think this will work out nicely for them. Again, because when you're talking about the 26 and then 27 classes, those could be better, and you're off of. Again, Deshaun Watson doesn't have a huge. I mean, it's nothing compared to the set. I think, yeah, I'm saying he has a $72.9 million cap hit right now, and then he'll have a $72.9 million cap hit next year. So you're not gonna do much anyways to get better. Might as well just sell your guys, bottom out. Let Deshaun Watson finish off that contract, and then bring in a rookie. Reset, just reset. The Deshaun Watson trade did not work out. It set you behind a bit. Reset. So I think that's what the Browns should do. I think Myles Garrett will help them out again by forcing their hand to do that. So that makes the most sense for their trajectory. And I want to talk about one more thing, and that's going to be the Lions hiring Tashad Choice as their running backs coach. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because even though it's just an assistant position, nothing too major, he comes from Texas, UT, where, I'm a fan of UT, as you can kind of tell from the shirt here. There we go. So they take Tashard Choice from Austin. Hopefully that doesn't affect too much on the recruiting side for Austin. But Tashard Choice was a great hire, mainly because look at what he's been able to do for the Texas running back room. I mean, Brooks was a great running back before he tore his ACL with UT, and then C.J. Baxter again. He was a 5-star recruit. He tore his ACL. Another guy had a season-ending injury, and so you might be like, ooh, maybe we shouldn't hire this guy considering the injury history we just had. I don't think that's necessarily Choice's fault. I think that's more on the strength and conditioning probably. But he's been able to. But look at how he's been able to develop Jaden Blue, who's now going to be in the draft. Wisner, how Wisner has developed this season with Texas. Now you're going to have a really good duo between Baxter and Wisner next year for Texas. And so he's been able to still just develop running backs so well and really make UT a very good running back school. I think he also had Bijan Robinson and why am I drawing a blank on his name? But yeah, he had Bijan Robinson as well. So Robinson, Brooks, Baxter's still probably gonna be a good back, I think, once he comes back from injury next year. You have Blue going into the draft this year. You have Wisner, who's going to be a great duo with Baxter, especially as Baxter ramps up his workload. And now you're bringing them over to the Lions, who already have two good running backs in Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. And so he's going to be a good coach. He's going to be able to help them probably even take that running game to the next level, which they're already at a very high level. He's just going to keep them there or improve. He's not going to help. He's not going to make you get worse. And he knows Jahmyr Gibbs. So Choice was coaching the running backs at Georgia Tech from 2020 to 21, where he worked with Jahmyr Gibbs. So he also helped Jahmyr Gibbs get to where Jahmyr Gibbs is now. And it's wherever he goes, he just makes running backs so much better. And for the Lions, who have two good running backs, that can only bring greatness. So I think that was a great hire by the Lions. Really going to help out their offense even more than they even needed help on the offense. But so that was a great hire by the Lions. Hopefully he's not. He will be missed from Texas, but hopefully we don't miss him too much on the recruiting side. And we'll see who Sark brings in, but Lions, great hire, and we'll just have to see what happens with the Eagles' offensive coordinator position, because last time you lost your offensive coordinator coming off a Super Bowl win, it did not end well the next year. I hope history repeats itself, but we'll see who they hire, and again, I think Reich is your guy. So that's going to do it from me. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let's make the comments. Just throw out, again, if you're watching the MLB side, throw out anything that you want the MLB of your initial reactions heading into the season. You're from the NBA side. Hey, let's comment. Who do you think won the trade deadline? Who do you think will make the biggest improvement in the second half of the season here post All-Star break? And from the NFL side, who has the most that they need to improve? Who do you think needs to improve the most? Not name the Cowboys. We all know the Cowboys need to improve them a ton, but who else needs to make a big leap? So please, again, like, comment, subscribe, share. Would really appreciate it. If you're watching on Spotify, thank you so much. Please, like, share, download it. Everything that you can do on Spotify. Would really appreciate the support. We're trying to build a community here of people who can share their opinions in a safe environment. I love to talk about sports. I love debating, and so please share all your thoughts. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one. See ya.